Sahana vavatu, sahanao bhunaktu, sahaviryam karavavahai, tejasvina vadhitamastu, ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Okay, so this prayer, the Om Sahana Vavatu, when the students and the teacher connect, right, then both are actually in a vulnerable place because, there's always this kind of hesitation and, you don't know what to expect. The teacher doesn't quite know. So it's a little bit of a risk on both sides. So for this reason, we started with a prayer. And this prayer is just acknowledging that both of us took a risk to be here, first of all. We first had to develop some trust, right? Now, who is this person? I don't know him. Some of us know me, some of us don't know me. That's okay. You see, it's always like that, first time. You don't know who this person is. And so what this prayer does is it acknowledges that, both of us need to put some form of an investment, right? There's some, of course, being here is some kind of an investment already. However, that is fine. However, it continues. There has to be a little bit more. And that little bit more that has to be there is, the attention, because our attention, tends to wander. So just for the next 1 hour and 15 minutes, there is some investment of our attention that we have to sort of open ourselves up and put our, judgments aside for a moment, and just for a moment, pause all of that narrative. What is this? Where is this going? What is this topic about? Who are these people? Who is this teacher? And then sort of comparing thing about I've heard others and how is this person better, or are they really qualified to teach? All of these voices start to come. And so this prayer acknowledges that is the reality for both sides. Right now, for example, I'm feeling a little bit vulnerable because it is our first time, which is okay. And you may be feeling a little bit also naturally skeptical, or maybe excited or happy, or whatever emotions you're feeling right now. See, this is very normal. And so when we say this prayer, then we simply acknowledge the facts. And the fact is, this is how we feel right now. And the fact is, we cannot feel anything other than what we're feeling right now. So now suppose someone says, well, no, I should be feeling something else. So now where is this comparison coming from? See, now this is where the memory starts to come and says, no, I've heard something else, and this is how I felt back then, and I'm supposed to feel like that now. And because I don't, then it starts this whole cycle of narratives that kind of create our interpretation of the experience. So now this prayer therefore acknowledges that we are to put our attention forward and pay attention. So now for the rest of us who don't know me, the truth is, the most part that I'm nervous about is actually speaking about myself. The knowledge is easy because the person, if they're in love with something, right, you spend all of your time studying and getting involved and inquiry, you totally forget about yourself. So now when it comes to these basics of, who am I? I'm like, what do I say? I'm just an instrument for this knowledge, a mouthpiece. And this knowledge is so huge, so vast. How do I even put myself at that level? I'm just a mouthpiece. That's it. But this mouthpiece has been speaking since, in regards to this Vedanta, since 2016, plus minus. And I went to Tirumalai to see Ramana Maharishi's ashram. And there I met a Bhagavad Gita teacher. He was the first non-dualist, first true non-dual tradition that I came across with, Advaita Vedanta. And so he was expounding the whole Gita. And I took this home for, it was a 25-day course. It was all 18 chapters compressed. And I inquired for 1 year, one whole year. That's all I did, for about 10 hours a day, in the light of every single statement of the Gita. So sitting down, waking up, inquiring, eating, back to inquiry, going out shopping, back home, inquiring, like that for 365 days. So that's all I did. And slowly, the knowledge became incredibly clear. And it was amazing. It was just like, there's nothing like getting clarity of what is the truth. There's really nothing like that. And then slowly, I felt compelled to bring a community, right? A community, because one of my teachers, who I'll speak about, what she said is her teacher, Swami Dayananda, he said that if you know something and if you have a talent at something, then why not create a community? Then why not start something? Why not start something in your community and bring people together? And this idea really resonated with me. Why not bring people together and you can just be a facilitator? And I thought, I like that. I like just being facilitating. And so it started slowly like that. And then I got involved with Chinmaya for the next 2 years. We did online courses, Chinmaya. I went to the Kerala. So it was just a lot of information, a lot of assimilation, a lot of inquiry. And so here I am. My passion is Advaita Vedanta. This is what I do all day, basically, and Sanskrit. These are my two topics of love. And so this is why we're here, coming together, knowing that, your teacher, my name is Andre, by the way, your teacher is not doing sort of, 20 things, he's only doing one thing in his life. And this is my speciality. So this is the reason why I'm bringing this together. So now my present teacher is, her name is Nima. In fact, I was just at her webinar yesterday, and she's doing the Gita. And so, it's just lovely being in her presence, because she's one of the top students from Swami Dayananda tradition, from Arshavidya. And she's very, very sharp. And so she always holds me together and kind of corrects small things. And so now she, plays a major role in my life. So I understand the value of consistent reminder, of consistent practice, of consistent just showing up. I mean, just showing up, that's all you need to do. That's all I do, just show up. And it works wonderful. So I thought, let me give back. Let me let you show up, and I'll do what my teacher does. Okay, so I hope that is somewhat of an introduction. Of course, there's a lot more details, but honestly, I think we'll find more about this as we go through the course. I don't want to put it all out, because it's, it's just an instrument. That's how you can look at me, instrument of the knowledge. And we are recipients. We are hopefully glad recipients. Okay. Now I understand that, so all I expect is just have an open mind. Okay. Put this narrative, this voice, this natural program, put it aside just for a moment, for at least 1 hour, and let's see what happens. Okay. So again, I am looking at 39 have logged in, which is really interesting because, I opened up the registration and 91 have signed up, right? But I already know that whenever there's this huge number, to be safe, all you do is just cut it in half, like straight up. You cut it in half, and that's already more realistic. But those who do show up, right? Now that also, I mean, hopefully not too many, but that also tends to sort of change over time. So that's really interesting. But what happened was I had this, for those early subscribers, you will see there was no tick at the bottom. You just had to enter your first name, last name, and email, right? And then just press register. But what happened was too many were registering too fast. And I knew if it's too fast, then it's probably too easy, doesn't require much commitment to sign up. And so the moment I put that tick mark at the bottom, right, I will do my best to show up because I value knowledge. You probably see that. The moment I put that, I tell you, registrations instantly just slow down by 90%. So even something so small as a tick, it's not even asking for a payment, just a tick mark already slows it down significantly. So this was a really interesting observation how even just qualifying the person with one tick mark already changes who's coming into, as they call, the funnel. So so I think what matters is the commitment versus the numbers. And this is the case anywhere today. This is the fact. Numbers are numbers, but really end of the day, it's who's committed. And so so hopefully we will stay at this number. Okay. So shall we start the teaching? Okay. So you've probably heard of the word school of thought or philosophy. In India, there is, or anywhere in the Western world, there are books, and they list out philosophy. They list out different schools of thought. So now, what is a school of thought? What is a philosophy? Is Vedanta a philosophy? No. The reason why Vedanta is not a philosophy or a school of thought is school of thought is an opinion. It's speculation. It is one mind or a few minds observing reality, observing things, observing behavior, observing nature, and making some conclusions. And so they say, we made a few conclusions in this particular field. Could be psychology, could be some religion, and it makes sense. It makes sense for us. It makes sense to our community. So school of thought is the way one thinks. Now, the way one thinks may not necessarily be the truth. It's just a way that one thinks. It's just like a lens, putting a lens over one's eye and saying, I see, for example, as a psychologist, I talk to you as a psychologist, suppose, and I say, I see you as a collection of behavior, as a collection of right beliefs, as a collection of culture, as a collection of processes in the mind. But then a biologist shows up and they say, I see you as an organism. I see you as blood, flesh, veins, muscle fascia. I see you as bone. And then you have a quantum physicist show up. Now they see the exact same person and they see what? Particles. They see atoms. They see molecules. They see the periodic table of elements. So now what is this? Who's right here? No one's right, no wrong. It's not the question of right or wrong. It's a question of, this is what's called a view, a certain way of looking at reality. So this means the biologist looking at reality, for that one, the reality will be true. Whereas for a physicist, for that one, the reality will be true as to what? As how they look at the world, not necessarily how a biologist looks at the world. So this is the difference. This is what a school of thought is. The way you look at reality for the sake of coping, for the sake of making sense of what reality is. It doesn't necessarily represent the truth, nor is it necessarily looking at the eyes of the truth. So now when Vedanta comes in, what's Vedanta? This is what we're doing, Vedanta here. Vedanta is not a school of thought. Because to be a school of thought, Vedanta has to speculate. But Vedanta doesn't speculate. What is speculation? Speculation, as I said, is one mind coming and then making some speculations and then saying, this is how it is, and therefore, this is how I'm going to live through this lens. Vedanta doesn't do that. It simply allows you to see what things are as they are. See the difference? So Vedanta is called a means of knowledge. What is a means of knowledge? Means of knowledge is a pramana. Pramana in Sanskrit. Pramana means a means by which I come to know the reality. The means by which I come to see things as they always are, they always have been, and they always will be. In other words, the means by which the reality was true cycles ago. The reality is true now, and the means by which I see reality cycles upon cycles upon cycles later. So this means there's this one underlying truth that doesn't change. And therefore, Vedanta is a means by which I come to discover this underlying reality that doesn't change. In fact, we will soon see that the definition of the truth is that which doesn't change through the 3 periods of time. Think about that. What is the truth? That which doesn't change throughout the 3 periods of time. That means it was the same billions of years ago. It is the same right now, and it will continue to be the same many generations later when we have ChatGPT version 18. Okay, so this means it's going to be the same all throughout, independent of the opinions of people, the opinions of schools of thought, the opinions of philosophical views, and opinions of different speculations. That which cannot be negated is the truth. So this means of knowledge is the means by which I discover this truth. And who is this truth? It is actually none other than yourself right now. So it doesn't appear like that because owing to ignorance, one is not able to recognize how is that so. But fortunately, you are that very truth right now. And we will see how slowly, slowly as we unravel the teaching. Now, the word Vedanta, right? I use the word Vedanta. What is Vedanta? We cannot just say these words without knowing what they are. So any word, right, has a root. Okay. So for example, take Archie, like hierarchy. Let's got the word Archie in there. Or monarchy. So you just added the word mon. Or anarchy. So they all got Archie there. Now Archie means government. So now if you put anarchy means negating. That means it's no government. If you put monarchy, like mono, which means what? Single government. If we have a hierarchy, then we have levels of government. So this means this word hierarchy, you understand, then any prefix we add onto it automatically becomes now decently clear what this word could indicate. So similarly, the word Veda also is coming from the root vid. Now, what is the word vid? V-I-D. It means not only to know, but also to attain. So not only to know, but to attain, V-I-D. This is the root word of Veda, because you got Veda, Vedanta, right? So let's look at this word Veda first, because Vedanta is 2 words actually. So now we're looking at the word Veda. So now this word Veda comes from the root vid, and vid means both to know and to attain. So now if we create some sensible statement, what does this mean? Like if you put a sensible statement to what the word now Veda means, right? That by which I come to attain, that by which I come to know. Know what? That by which I come to know the knowledge of reality. But now the question comes, okay, why do I need the Veda then? If Veda is a means of knowledge, or that by which I come to attain or to know the reality, which cannot be negated in all 3 periods of time, and you happen to be that right now, if Veda is a means for that, why don't I just use my senses or the mind? For example, you open your eyes and you see. Right now, I'll show you this cup. Okay, you helplessly see the cup. Why? Because your senses are open. Your eyes are open. But suppose you want to see bacteria on this cup. Can your senses do that? No. So what can see bacteria? Microscope. So now, what is a microscope used for? It's used to see what the senses cannot see. It's used to reveal those parts that the senses are not tuned to. Now, suppose I give you a microscope and I say, this microscope can reveal what your eyes cannot reveal. And you say, I don't believe you. Yeah, prove it to me. Prove to me that this microscope can see bacteria. Now, what will I say to you? I will say, well, how do I prove it? You need to use it. No, I don't want to use it. I don't want to be disappointed. I want you to prove to me that this microscope can show mitochondria, for example. I want you to prove that. And I say, look, I need you to actually attach this microscope to what? Your ear? No, to your eye. So I need you to attach this instrument to the right instrument so that knowledge of something can take place, of the mitochondria, for example. Okay, so this means that I cannot prove that the means of knowledge works until when? Until you use it yourself. So this is in Vedanta what we call Shraddha. In Bhagavad Gita, there's a statement, Shraddhavan labhate jnanam. So in other words, when you put the word van, it means the possessor of what? Possessor of Shraddha. So the possessor of Shraddha, the one who has faith, obtains knowledge. So this means I have to have some faith in the microscope that it's the authority. It is meant to reveal what the senses cannot reveal. I have to have some faith in that instrument so that I can actually use it. If there is no faith, then that instrument called the microscope will stay there for generations, just waiting. It actually doesn't care whether the person looks through it or not. It's made specifically to reveal a certain reality, but it still requires the participation of the individual. It still requires a level of faith. So in that case, the senses, yes, they can see, but they cannot see, for example, that which the senses are not tuned for. So we need to attach a different kind of instrument to the eye so that the eye can reveal knowledge, which otherwise it cannot do on its own. Now, what about the mind? The mind can also know. Why do we need the Veda? Why do we need the Veda? It can reveal knowledge, but the mind can also reveal knowledge. It can study phenomena, it can extract, it can postulate, it can observe the reality, it can use mathematics, and it can figure things out through that means, through mathematics and through different sciences. It can know its own world also, what's going on inside the mind. It can also know what's going outside the world. The mind is also very good, an instrument for knowledge taking place. So we have both senses and we have the mind. Both of them can reveal knowledge. Why do we need the Veda then? This is because the Veda reveals something that the mind and the senses cannot reveal. They cannot sort of observe it. They cannot see it. They cannot dream it up and go, oh, I have discovered something amazing. No, the mind cannot do that. It cannot do that through observation. Why not? Because you cannot know fullness through the mind. How are you going to know fullness through the mind? If the mind knows fullness, then it's just turned, and you happen to be that fullness, then the mind has turned fullness into a concept. Oh, I am full. I am complete. I am this entire universe, this entire reality right now. If the mind does that, then it's what? It's turned that truth into another concept, another little concept, a concept that has arisen as a thought. The senses cannot see wholeness. The senses can only see what? Objects. They can only see limited objects with colors and form and sounds and tastes. So therefore, the senses cannot see it. Therefore, the senses cannot know you, cannot know I am, because you're always present. Right now, you're always present. And the question is, who is this one that is always present? Who is this one that's always here, always now? The truth. What is this truth? The senses cannot see the truth because everything is the truth. The mind cannot see the truth or know the truth because even the mind is the truth. So if the mind tries to know the truth, it's turned truth into another idea of what the truth is. Okay, so the Veda reveals what we can say behind. Now this behind what? Behind the senses and behind the mind. I am, the ever-present I am. That which is behind your senses and behind the mind. Right now, who is behind this mind? This is what the Veda reveals. It also reveals that which is beyond. For example, we don't need science. For example, if you investigate into science and biology, then are they going to show you things like dharma? Dharma, the principles of morality. Are they going to show you that? And even if they do show you, it's already been shown by the Veda. Way before science was here, way before biology was here. Okay, so they reveal what is not only behind. Now, before I get to this dharma, when I say behind, this is an implied meaning, by the way. It doesn't mean as in, I am behind my mind. Do you feel right now like you're behind your mind? Do you feel like you're behind your mind? No, it is one homogeneous total experience. And what is inside this one homogeneous total experience? What is this experience made of? Well, it's made of the senses. It's made of this person speaking. It's made of this voice. It's made of the sound. But it's also made of what? You. Okay, you cannot exclude yourself. So there's always two things in our experience. There is this experience, and there is who? I. This we cannot deny. Now, of course, we have to know what is this I that is always ever present. Okay, so now when we say behind, we don't mean as in, right, I am behind my thoughts or behind my senses. It's just an implied meaning. For example, just a very common example is electricity, right? We can all relate to electricity that is pervading the fan. Now, electricity that pervades the fan, now suppose the electricity is always there, right? It's just there in the entire engine. The whole engine of the fan is pervaded by electricity. So electricity obtains in the fan. Now, when electricity obtains in the fan, what does the fan do? It does what the fan is made to do. It does according to the body of the fan. If it's a body of a heater, then that same electricity will express through that appliance as what? As heat. If it obtains in a rotor, in a motor, then that appliance will do according to what it is tuned for, which is to rotate. So now suppose this fan doesn't know about electricity, and it cannot know it. It cannot, because all the fan does is what? It spins. That's all it does. It spins. Now suppose this fan is not told about electricity, and it's doing the spinning, and it's inside a warm room, and there are all of us sitting in the room, and it's really hot, and the fan is in the corner, and it's blowing and it's spinning. And the fan is there so proud. Oh, look at all these people. They're all depending upon my doership. I'm cooling them. I'm so important in this room. Without me, they would all fry. I am so significant. Look at me. I'm a proud fan. This is what the fan would experience. Why? Why is it taking ownership when it is not, when the electricity is because of which the fan spins? You take the electricity out, there's no spinning. But you take the electricity notion out of the fan, and the fan becomes what? It becomes proud, because it doesn't understand that it consists of this instrument, but also there's another reality because of which there is this spinning. So this means, like this, a human being, you take this I am out, not knowing what the nature of I is. And what happens? The person not only takes ownership, but they think they are the doer. They think they're doing the walking, doing the talking, doing the teaching, doing the listening. But in actuality, there's always two things going on. One of them, there's an instrument, like an appliance, like a fan, like a heater, like a toaster. On the other hand, is also this reality, this truth, because of which all instruments do what they are fine-tuned to do. This instrument is fine-tuned to teach. Your instrument can be fine-tuned to solve problems. Another instrument is fine-tuned to take care of kids. Another instrument is fine-tuned to build house. Another instrument is fine-tuned to fly an airplane. All of instruments are fine-tuned according to what? According to their nature, according to their talents, according to what their instrument is fine-tuned to do. Why? Because of this one reality that underlies all instruments. And this one reality is what Tattvabodha, I'll explain what this word means, Tattvabodha, is talking about. In fact, the word Tattva is this reality, and Bodha is knowledge. So knowledge of this reality. And what is this reality? I am. You are. One reality alone. Therefore, knowledge of this one reality. Okay? So far, what is the Veda? Veda is that which reveals behind this truth that you are, wholeness, the entire reality, consciousness, as we will get into these words slowly. It also reveals what is beyond. Now, don't get mixed up with these words beyond, behind. This is just all for the sake of teaching. I have to sort of categorize it. Beyond, we can say, is things like what happens after death. Can science and biology tell us this? Not really. So the Veda also has knowledge of what happens after death. It has knowledge of the principles of cause and effect, like what happens when a person does one thing and how it manifests in one's life. So therefore, our life is a reflection of everything that this person has done before, whether they remember it or not. The Veda also talks about that. It also, for example, shows that the mind is different than the brain. Now, can science do this? In fact, I looked up. What science will say is the mind is a product of the brain. So when the brain grows, the mind comes. But Vedanta says the mind requires the brain to function. There are two different orders of reality. And now you say, how do you demonstrate that? Now the Veda will show you, but some examples, like your brain weighs how much? Have you put your brain on scale? Probably not, but we know it's about 1.3 kilograms, okay? So your brain has weight, but how much weight do your thoughts have? Okay, how much weight do your emotions have? Can you sort of, speak to a scale and then you suddenly see the scale getting heavier and heavier because all of these words are coming out? No. So this means, in fact, what is communication? Think about what is communication. During communication, what do? We speak. But speaking is a reflection of what? Your mind. So to speak is to reveal your mind. So while we cannot know our mind directly, we can know our mind indirectly. How? Open your mouth, and that's what your mind is about. That's all speaking is. Now, how much weight do your words have? No weight at all. And they're just a reflection of your mind. Go to space, outer space, and then the brain floats because it is subject to the laws of gravity. But do your thoughts float away? Do your emotions start to float away? No, they don't. So in other words, it is again a different order of matter. Like the brain has one order of matter, one type of matter, what we call gross matter, physical matter, while the mind is subtler matter. But there's still matter, but they're slightly different orders of matter, different orders of reality. Okay. So this is just an example, some of the logics that the Vedas in respect to beyond will reveal and kind of discern to help you, to show you that there is a difference. Okay. So now if we go back to the example of a microscope, as I said, now the microscope becomes what we can call the authority, the boss. Okay, the boss. It is the boss. Why? Because it is made by intelligent minds, which or whose purpose is to reveal certain reality, which is the reality of the small, like the mitochondria. But this microscope, we established two facts. Number one, it doesn't care whether you use it or not, because it remains independent. It's an independent means of knowledge. That means it alone reveals what it's meant to reveal. It doesn't need to borrow something else to reveal the mitochondria. It's made specifically to reveal the mitochondria. So number one, it is an independent means of knowledge. And number two is, to what do you need to attach the microscope for the microscope to actually become a valid means of knowledge? Two, there's only one instrument. Two, the eye. So this means unless I attach it to the eye, you can attach it to your ear, it doesn't work. Attach it to your nose, it doesn't work. In that same manner, the means of knowledge, how we started out with our talk, is Vedanta. Vedanta is a means of knowledge. Unless you attach it to what? Your eye? No, to your mind. So to attach it to the mind, Veda becomes a valid means of knowledge to reveal what? Tattva, the reality, which you happen to be right now. Until then, if I have no trust, no faith in the Veda, does the Veda care? Whose problem it is? Is it the Veda's problem, or is it the one who is yet to develop some sense of maturity to use that means of instrument? It is their problem. So this is now what we call readiness. Is the person ready to use that which is given in order to facilitate or to reveal a certain reality? The question is that person ready? You can provide the instrument, you can provide the means of knowledge, you can provide the guru, you can provide the environment, you can provide everything, but what's still the question? Am I ready to use it? Do I have enough faith for me to stay long enough until it reveals what it's meant to reveal? So what is now required? Patience and time. This is why this knowledge cannot take place so quickly. There is a certain amount of time by which the mind needs to be exposed, that we need to attach this means of instrument to the mind, and then we need to look at the reality through this means of knowledge for certain truths to come out, and therefore to recognize the reality as it is right now. Okay? So now let's talk a little bit about, okay, actually, let's summarize. So we have talked about the word Veda. Comes from the word vid, that by which I come to know. Veda reveals that which is behind and beyond. Okay. So that's the word Veda. Now let's take the word Anta. The word Anta, because Veda, Anta, therefore Vedanta. Just put the two words together, Anta. Anta has two meanings. The first one is just inside. You heard the word Antahkarana. That means inside. That's it, inside. So this means it's knowledge inside the Veda. Where? At the end? No, all throughout. It could be in the beginning, in the middle, or at the end. It's just inside. That's all Anta means. But more importantly, this word Anta also means the final knowledge, the final truth, which is Tattva, which is the reality, the non-negatable truth. Now, this word Anta also has another name, otherwise called Upanishads. And this Upanishads and Anta are one and the same words, really, in respect to the truth. So now you put the words Veda plus Anta together, and what do we have? Vedanta. So therefore, we ask the question, what is Vedanta? Well, because it's got the word Anta, obviously we're not going to go so much into the ritualistic side of the Veda, because Veda has two sections, by the way. The first section of the Veda is what? The ritual side. Right? We call it, in Sanskrit, we call it karma kanda. Karma means action, kanda means section. So section on rituals. And this section of the Veda is actually the bulkier portion. Why? Why is the first section, which deals with rituals, epistemology, etymology, grammar, hymns, all of these things it deals with? Why is it the bulkier portion? The reason is because, what do you think? Compared to self-knowledge, the truth of knowledge is a small section of the Vedas, of all the four Vedas. But the big section, the bulk section of rituals and how to attain worldly results and how to have a successful life, that is like 90% plus of the Vedas. Why do you think this is? Why do we have such a small section on the reality versus such a huge section on 10,000 rituals?
Andre, perhaps it's because more people are interested in worldly pursuits, and then also because the final knowledge is a simple concept, I guess, that doesn't really need much explanation.
Yeah, good. Okay, so what David is saying is, I'll actually add on to what David is saying, is you see there's so many personalities in the world, right? In fact, all of us have different personalities. Now, if we don't know about the truth, then we're not going to be interested in the truth. We're going to be interested in what? Different objects in this world, different forms of pursuits, dharma, morals, ethics, security, all forms of pleasures, and all forms of just great things in life. And so because there's so many personalities in life and so many ways to attain and so many fields of areas to pursue, biology, medicine, chemistry, you've got grammar, we've got mathematics, we've got things like Ayurveda, right? So many fields and so many people. What more can you expect than a huge portion to accommodate so many people with so many ways by which to attain certain results? So this is why this is such a big section in the Vedas. Does anyone else want to add on to this? Why is the first section the bulk here? It's always good. It's basically more or less this idea that it's just there to help you to become successful, which is required, of course. Don't get me wrong. It is required to attain a relative success in this world. But now, when this individual comes to a certain maturity, to a certain understanding, what happens? Then they turn to the second section. The second section, which is what we said, the Anta section, the Upanishads, the knowledge section. And who do you think the second section is for?
It's a moksha shastra.
Good. So in other words, Lorena, they have to know something about this, word moksha. Now, moksha is, it means liberation. It means, some call it enlightenment. Now, this word moksha, by the way, it has two definitions. So in order to understand this, the first definition of moksha is disassociating from what I am not. In other words, removing those notions that what I am not, like anger, smallness, successful person, man, woman. So in other words, freedom from what I am not, freedom from all of those notions that create a sense of smallness. Like I am small, I am insignificant, I don't matter. I have no place in this world. I am just this much flesh and bones and thoughts and these emotions. All of these notions are there. They're part of this transactional reality, which is okay. But it is freedom from all of that because you're much greater. Your truth is much greater than all of these small things that are still part of the reality. Okay, of course, we will discuss this in more detail, so I'm not going to go into too much now. The second definition of moksha is just simply freedom from rebirth. So freedom from who you are not while living and freedom from rebirth. Okay, so we will go into moksha a little bit later. So now the second section is this knowledge section. So again, Veda consists of number one, the ritual section, and number two, the knowledge section. Knowledge regarding what? The reality, Tattva. Okay, so now let's go into the three major texts in this tradition of Vedanta. So now you know what Vedanta means. Veda and Anta. Okay, any questions so far? regarding the word Vedanta. In Vedanta, there are three major texts that need to be considered. So when you say the word Vedanta, the first text, which we've now just gone through, is the Upanishads, okay? The knowledge of the truth, the knowledge of reality. Now, how many Upanishads are there? There are 108. There are more. It doesn't really matter, but there is a number of them. And some of them will say there are the major Upanishads and there are the minor Upanishads. Now, I don't really look at it like that because, what is this, major and minor? It's sort of, let's go into the 10 major Upanishads, then you not pursue the other minor Upanishads. So the 10 Upanishads, they're the main ones. They're the books. And why are there 10? Because they sort of reveal the crux of all of the Upanishads that there are. So if you have, suppose, 108 of them, only 10 is required to really know what the rest of them are saying. You got like Katha Upanishad, Kena Upanishad, Chandogya, Mundaka, Mandukya. Okay, these are all the quote major. But why just say they're the crux of what the Upanishads are saying? So if you understand these 10 Upanishads, then the rest of these become sort of like magazines. You can like read them like a magazine. You're not going to learn. You'll learn some things, but you more or less know what all of the Upanishads are if one pursues these 10. Now, one doesn't even have to pursue the 10 Upanishads. They can just pursue two or three, like Chandogya Upanishad, the beautiful one, or Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. It reveals the whole reality, miss nothing, absolutely nothing it misses. Therefore, one doesn't even have to go to the 10 Upanishads, just one. Now, where does the book Tattvabodha come in? You will see that very soon as I answer. So the first one is, in Vedanta, the Upanishads, okay? That's the first major source of texts, which come from where? Vedas, okay? The second text is the Bhagavad Gita. This is a second major text that comprises the word Vedanta. Okay, now what is the Bhagavad Gita? Very simple. Imagine you have 108 cows, and on the cows is written different Upanishad names. Okay, so we got Manduka Upanishad, Chandogya Upanishad, cow, and so on. And they're all very, disciplined cows, and they're going about their business, munching on grass. And what you do is you take a big bucket, and then you go and milk one cow, milk another cow, go all the way to the last cow like that. And now what happens? You have milk from 108 cows. And what do you write on this little bucket or big bucket by now? What do you write on there? You write Bhagavad Gita. So what is Bhagavad Gita? It is milk from all 108 Upanishads. So this means that if you go through the Bhagavad Gita, you have technically gone through all 108 Upanishads. This is why Bhagavad Gita is such an amazing text, because it truly misses absolutely nothing in this tradition. In fact, if there was one text to take on an island, if you were lost there for the rest of your life, it's the Bhagavad Gita, probably, at least if you're interested in the truth. Okay. And this Gita is a conversation, as you know already, between a student and a teacher, Krishna and Arjuna. Now, whether this conversation really took place in the way that it did, I highly doubt it, because, real life doesn't take place with perfect punctuation, perfect grammar, perfect verses. It consists of pauses and so on. So it is very likely that the author, which is Veda Vyasa, who wrote the Mahabharata, and this Bhagavad Gita is a section in the middle of the Mahabharata. Okay, so Mahabharata is a huge, great epic that it's just a lovely story. And right in the middle of that Mahabharata is the Bhagavad Gita. So now, whether this Bhagavad Gita or Mahabharata took place or not in real life, that is really not the question. It's actually not that important. Why? Because in this tradition, Veda Vyasa, right, this great man, right, he also wrote, other texts I'll talk about, but he was very, very intelligent. And so whether we're talking about Krishna or Veda Vyasa, they're actually one and the same. They both know all of the Upanishads, they all know the whole Vedas. So whether it's made up or whether it happened in real life, it actually doesn't really matter, because Vyasa is as good as Krishna, and Krishna is as good as Vyasa. So this is doesn't matter. You know, it's just a conversation that he expanded upon what apparently happened. Okay, so the Gita, yes, okay, suppose it did happen. Now, what did Vyasa do? He took that conversation between Krishna and Arjuna, and he expanded upon that conversation in the light of Veda, in the light of Upanishads, which is why we call the Bhagavad Gita Smriti, S-M-R-I-T, Smriti. Okay, now what is Smriti? You probably heard remembered. Do not use this word remembered. It just means it is a complement. It is just there to complement, to add extra clarity, to not extra clarity, but it's there to create a dialogue form between a student and a teacher in the light of the Upanishads. So in other words, it is a reflected text. It is like taking an event that has happened or not happened, doesn't really matter, and then looking at that event and then putting that event in a structure. And not only putting it in a structure, but something that is easy to read, it is fun to read, but also it is keeping in truth with the Vedas, which is considered the truth, which cannot be negated, it cannot be contradicted, this Veda. Okay, so Bhagavad Gita is therefore Smriti, reflected text. Whereas the Vedas are called Shruti. What does the word Shruti mean? How do you spell Shruti? I cannot, but I know in Sanskrit, Shruti. Okay, so I'll just say Shruti. So Shruti is revealed texts. And it is revealed to whom? To whom are these Vedas revealed? They're revealed to rishis. Okay, now in Sanskrit, we have a term. What is a rishi? You say now, what is a rishi? And we say Rishayaha mantra drashtaraha. Rishayaha mantra drashtaraha. So drashtaraha means those who are drashtas, those who are seers of mantras, are the rishis. Now, how did the rishis see these mantras? They saw them in the depths of meditation. And just to bring this down to earth, because sometimes we think these rishis are amazing. We're all rishis, trust me. All of us in meditation have had moments of clarity, so much that things were amazingly clear. There was no doubt in that moment. The only thing is, we don't write these thoughts down. The rishis probably did. Okay, so you and I both had these moments of revelations that do not contradict reality, and these revelations is what the rishis call mantras. When we say rishayaha mantra drashtaraha. Okay, so this is not so mystical. No, what is this revealed text and how did it come? And it's just normal, down to earth. Okay, so now, so the Vedas is what? Shruti, okay, revealed. Bhagavad Gita is Smriti. That means it is reflected upon what has happened at some event. The last text that makes up Vedanta is called Brahma Sutrani, Brahma Sutras. So this means sutras are just like collections of statements. And the Brahma Sutra is actually amazing. It's a very condensed text. The logic in the Brahma Sutra is in very short, succinct statements that is packed with wisdom, but also highly logical and intellectual in nature. Not as in trying to sort of entertain the intellect, but it is there to answer the many doubts that were available or that were seemingly unanswered in the Upanishads. See, in that time, very important to understand the context. In the time of the Brahma Sutra, however many years that happened, thousands of years ago, what happened was India, and so this also happened in Europe in the Renaissance age. India was a very intellectual culture. It was very intelligent, and so now when you have intelligent fellas walking around, then what are they trying to do? They're trying to see, you know, who can I sort of take down, because, you know, I believe my system is, my school of thought is the best. So now what they used to do is they used to have what's called sparring contests. And Adi Shankara used to do this. He went and he actually asked, hey, Mina, would you like to have spar with me? For example, Buddhism, and I know Advaita Vedanta. So would you like to spar with me? And Mina would say, yes. And then I would make a statement and I would say, that the reality alone is, Brahman alone is. And Mina would say, no, it's all, it's Vaisheshika, it's all emptiness. There's no such thing as the final reality. And then I would have to sort of talk with Mina in a way to show that her system has loopholes, and she would do the same one to me. And so at the end of the sparring match, then whoever sort of has, not not submitted to being defeated, they are, by definition, their system is non-negatable. Their system cannot be negated. That means their system doesn't have loopholes. So what happened was, at that time, different intellectuals were looking at these statements from the Upanishads, and they were saying, this doesn't quite make sense. We don't, this Tattvamasi, this, this prajna, this prajnanam Brahman, there's some loopholes there. So we think it says this, but that is not what they were saying. So in order to explain their rationale, their rationale based on their intellectual need to understand what was written, the Brahma Sutra, which is why the Brahma Sutra are highly oriented towards those intellectuals who have a need to look at things and find a million different loopholes in any single statement. Which is why today also, Brahma Sutra is not that kind of taught, because we've already figured things out. We've already gone through this age of intellectual reasoning and assessment. So the knowledge is very simple. Now it's just more of a matter of, okay, let's go through a simple Upanishad, or let's go through Bhagavad Gita, and we will show you the truth. But there are a few numbers, and there is actually a few in the class, I know, who are attracted to the Brahma Sutra. And if you get to know them, they're very smart. Their intellect is very sharp, and so they have this natural interest for the Brahma Sutra. Okay, so Vedanta consists of how many texts? 3. First one, Upanishads. Second one, Bhagavad Gita. Third one, Brahma Sutra. Okay. So what is the Tattvabodha then? Where does Tattvabodha fit in? Because this is the book that we're doing. Okay, Tattvabodha. Tattvabodha, the text that we are undertaking, is a topical text. Topical text. In Sanskrit, they call it Prakarana Grantha. Prakarana Grantha. Prakarana is topical Grantha text. Okay, you don't have to put these Sanskrit words, I'll say both, but whichever way you want. So what is a topical text? It is a text that takes the most important parts from the Bhagavad Gita, the Brahma Sutra, and the Upanishads, puts it all together in one simple text, and conveys the truth in the simplest manner possible. A manner that is the easiest way to understand the reality, Tattva. That means a way that doesn't require too much qualifications, doesn't require too much sort of expertise. It doesn't require the person to have gone through any Vedantic work, actually. Therefore, it is a text that is there, open for anyone who wants to understand the entire, all 3 texts that reveal the truth in the simplest manner possible. And one thing I also want to say is that all these 3 texts, right? Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita, and Brahma Sutra, all these 3 are called in one word, Shastra. Okay, you heard those word Shastra before. Shastra means in English scriptures. So now when we say Shastra or scriptures, okay, what are we talking about? What are we including? We're always including these 3 texts. So therefore, Tattvabodha is a topical text that takes the crux from the Shastra, and it talks about and it reveals what it is. It expands upon the most important points, and it allows the student to understand the most important points in the Shastra. It also allows the student to be able to enter the Shastra with confidence. So this means after going through Tattvabodha, one's able to now go into Bhagavad Gita and say, I have heard this, I have heard this, I've heard this, I've seen this, I understood this, I understood this. There is very little that I do not understand. They enter any Upanishad and they go, I heard this, I heard this, I heard this, I heard this, I understood this. There's very little that I don't understand. Or if you are brave, you go into Brahma Sutra, you go, I've understood what is the essence of the message that they are revealing. So therefore, going to the Tattvabodha gains entry to what? Shastra, to the scriptures. Not just sort of, now careful, this is not, by the way, a class of, they say Tattvabodha, right? The text we're going through is a book of definitions. It is not just a book of definitions. It is also a manual for moksha, for liberation. It is not just there to sort of, it's not an academic pursuit. Okay, so this is the difference between university grade Vedanta and what we're doing right now. What's the difference between university grade Vedanta, like the 6 schools of philosophy? Let me teach you about Advaita, Buddhism, Jainism, yoga, Vishishta Advaita. Let me teach you about, different schools. What's the difference between that and what we are doing now? Because, by the way, you can go to university and learn Vedanta right now. Did you know that? And you can get a lot more knowledge that I can tell you, or any teacher can tell you. So then, what are we doing here? Why don't we go to university? Why do you think? What's the difference between this Vedanta and university Vedanta?
This is actually applying it to ourselves.
Yeah, good. So in other words, the question is, do you want informative Vedanta or transformative Vedanta? Okay, informative or transformative. Classes like this are transformative. They directly apply to I, the one who is listening right now. Whereas university grade Vedanta, I sit there as a safe subject who's listening and going, interesting. This is what Brahman, this is what Atman, this is what these Mahavakyas mean, this is the subtle body. Interesting. Okay, now let's go into Jainism. Okay, this is what they say. Okay, Buddhism, this is what, interesting. So now you walk out as an educated one, but who is this individual? Who is it that is educated? Onto whom is all of this knowledge stored? Does that person know themselves? Maybe this is why, in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 11, when Krishna showed the, Vishwarupa to Arjuna, then what did Arjuna say? I cannot handle this anymore. Bring me back, Krishna, to your usual form. I've seen enough. So this is a very interesting statement, because what does it say? It means it's a metaphorical statement. After Arjuna has seen all of these things, all of this beauty and wonder, and 6 schools of philosophy, he says, hey, this is not helping me. Bring me back down to earth so that I can look into myself. I have seen it all, and it has not touched my heart at all. I have seen it all. Maybe it's touched my heart a little bit, but it has not really touched me to the core. It has not penetrated my being. Therefore, Krishna, bring me back to your usual form so that I can resume the teaching and be transformed by this knowledge. Okay, so same thing here. This kind of Vedanta is transformative. It directly focuses on you, on I, the one that is listening right now. Okay. So let's go into any questions before we go into our verse.
Would you say that the teachings at university are more about teaching Vedanta as a school of thought or a philosophy?
Yes.
And your class is more making the distinction that no, Vedanta is not a school of thought, it's a means of knowledge. Yeah.
Excellent, Lloyd. 100%. I love that, the way you put it. So again, this is Vedanta is to be understood as a means of knowledge. Okay, now actually let me get onto this point, because I was going to go deeper into this, and Lloyd has reminded me. Now what is Vedanta? Would say it is a means of knowledge. What is a means of knowledge? That by which I come to know the nature of myself. Whereas if I go to some form of university or school, then again, what am I learning? I'm learning how everything is, one. Everything is one. Okay, and there's one without a second. Okay, I got that. But then it's like this 10th man story, right? I learn about everything, but I exclude myself. I exclude myself from the big picture. Therefore, the individual remains safely ignorant, no different than when they walked in. Ignorant about the nature of I am before walking in. Walking in, now this ignorant I am is educated about Vedanta. This ignorant I am walks out of the class, and they continue now with one more spiritual resume to tell to the world how I have gone to school and I've gotten this qualification and I passed the marks and I got #1 in class and I know the 6 schools of philosophy and I can tell you all about it. But then who are you? Who are you? What is the nature of I? What is behind all of these words? What's behind this mind? What is behind this knowledge? Do you know that? No, that's not important. So this is the idea. It is not a philosophy. It is not a school or a way of looking at the world. Vedanta is not a way of looking at the world, because a way of looking at the world depends on what? Depends on a very limited scope. Very limited scope. This is how it is, and everything outside is not considered. It's not taken into account. Vedanta takes everything into account, and it looks into the nature of those things, and then you start to remove doubts pertaining to different aspects of reality. What is this? What is this? What is that? What is this not? And so on. Vedanta is a means of knowledge, that by which I discover the truth as myself right now. It is personal. Does that answer? Is that okay, Lloyd?
Yeah. Additional question. Is there any other field of knowledge that you would possibly call also a means of knowledge?
There's a lot of means of knowledge. Mathematics is a means of knowledge, okay? So this means I come into a class and suppose a teacher says 9 times 2 is 18, suppose. 9 times 2 is 18. And I go, okay, 9 times 2 is 18. Okay, good. And then 9 times 3 is 27. And then you memorize the entire multiplication table. Does this mean you have understood how multiplication works? Or just memorized? Just memorized. I have not understood. How do I actually arrive to these numbers when there's no memorization involved? Take memorization out. Now, how do I arrive to these numbers when there is 1 times another number? What's the logic? What's the method by which I come to that conclusion and knowing that it has 100% certainty without being incorrect? That's called a means of knowledge. A means of knowledge is a sequence of processes, a sequence of events, a sequence of understandings until I understand the whole field, in this case, not a field, but a whole reality. So there's not just Vedanta means of knowledge. There is a means of knowledge for everything, really. It's just called a well thought out system, a well thought out system. Another way to look at means of knowledge, by the way, is using the word model. You know what a model is? The model of, suppose, Ayurveda, that's a model. You've got homeopathy, that's a model. You've got physiology, right? Chiropractor, he uses a different kind of model than will a masseur, right? So in other words, any field uses a model. What's the purpose of a model? To solve a problem. To solve a problem that needs to be solved. So means of knowledge is like a model. What's the purpose of a model? To solve a problem. And what is the problem in relation to Vedanta? Smallness. I am small and this universe is big. Questions pertaining to the reality, and I am different from this reality. And even if we have heard that I am not different from this reality, we still have not understood what does that really mean? Has that really touched me? Do I really experience it? Is that my reality right now? So therefore, a means of knowledge is to come and directly understand it as myself. That's called direct assimilation, direct understanding. Okay, so next week we will begin the invocation. We will go into the Vasudevendra Yogindram. Let's just chant it once and then we will continue this next week. So I will go first and you can follow. So verse 1, Vasudeva. Vasudevendra Yogindram Natva Jnana Pradam Gurum Mumukshunam Hitarthaya Tattvabodho Bhidiyate. Okay, one more time. Vasudevendra Yogindram Natva Jnana Pradam Gurum Mumukshunam Hitarthaya Tattvabodho Bhidiyate. Okay, so next week we will begin the official teaching, and I hope to see most of us next week.
Thank you.
Purnamadav
Thank you.
Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.